Good morning everyone and welcome along to our first workshop for Primary 1 parents and carers. You can see we're filming today and the plan is that these 3 sessions are filmed and we'll upload them. I'm not sure if it's the website or YouTube, Mr McKean?
One or the other.
One or the other, we'll let you know, so that not only parents who can't come along today can access this, but if there's anything you want to go back and check again, then it's there for you to use. So we'll all be speaking in our best telephone voices today so that we're not letting ourselves down. I'll introduce Mrs McLaughlin. Mrs McLaughlin is our Challenge Leader of Learning teacher. I spoke at the induction days about Glasgow's commitment to improving outcomes for all children, and each school has been allocated some teaching pointage based on what we call the indicator multiple deprivation. So it's to say what's the gap between the people that have and the children that don't have, and how we close that gap. We have Mrs McLaughlin allocated to the school point 5, which is kind of half a teacher, 2.5 days a week, and Mrs McLaughlin also has a teaching commitment in primary 2. Mrs McLaughlin's job is to work alongside myself and the other teachers to raise attainment for all children and to make sure that we are supporting our children who need the most help along with all other children. This is a really key part of it, is parental involvement and reading. We've focused on reading because reading is the key to everything. And this first workshop is looking at phonological awareness, the building blocks to reading that allow your children to access literacy and the wider world. So there'll be a short test at the end to see how you get on. I'm kidding, but it is kind of interactive. Next week we're going to be looking at maths and numeracy, and the following week we're looking at homework as well, and hopefully you'll find these useful. We'll get a bit of feedback from you at the end. So I'll leave you with Mrs McLaughlin.
Right, thank you. Good morning everyone, and thank you for coming along. And as Mrs Nicholson said, I'm going to be presenting on reading this morning. Just hopefully this will work. Right, so as I said, I don't know if you came to the induction days. Any of you were here at the induction days? Quite a few. Spoke about how their language development is from when you're a bump inside your mum. They're listening to the pattern of language, even they're hearing the pattern of language as you're pregnant, as the mums are pregnant and the child is growing inside the mum. And then when the baby's born, it's all about communicating with that baby. It's about looking at the baby looking at you, picking up on the facial gestures, picking up on everything that you're doing and saying, and about all the language interaction that you have with the child as the child is developing. So we've had the child that has been a toddler, the child that has hopefully doing this at nursery, not in your house, painting and exploring, and then as they're getting ready, they've been exposed to reading, they've been exposed to books, they've been exposed to language from the day dot, from the start, and now it's time for school. And your child is 2 weeks into school. So this is us, and already the skills for reading are developing and have started. And again, as I showed you in your previous presentation, readiness to read, these skills are already there in your children. I'm sure these wee ones sitting here will look at these and go, oh, McDonald's, oh, packet of crisps, oh, Toys R Us, let's go and get a toy. They know, they're starting to recognise that a symbol, a shape, has a meaning, and that's what reading's about. So these skills are being developed from very, very early on in your child's life. And as for the process of reading, in school we concentrate on 2 aspects of reading. There's the mechanics of reading, being actually to be able to decode and to be able to make sense of the words that are in front of you, to be able to read those words. And then there's the understanding, the comprehension of what you're reading, which is also a fundamentally important part of the reading process. So if I speak about the mechanics first, phonological awareness is the key for your child to be able to read. And research has shown that if a child has poor phonological awareness, then they will struggle with literacy. So we are putting in a lot of phonological awareness into the school, into the curriculum. Your child has been exposed to that from yourselves without even knowing it. You've been doing that with your child. But also within the nursery, there's a programme of study in the nurseries that the children have been exposed to. The next part of that is about phonemes, about sound, what sound a letter makes. and how those phonemes are important in reading. And then moving on to phonics, actually giving that sound a shape, which is called a grapheme, or to you now it's a letter, right? So again, that's a very important stage in the mechanics of reading. And then getting those phonics, getting those phonemes, putting them together to blend to make words. And then also there is some words that can't be blended, because this is the English language we're talking about, which is rather silly at times, that we can't make sense of why is that, and why is that, and why is it that says that, but that says that, and that sounded that way, and that sounded that way. Sometimes we can't make rhyme or reason of it, so it's just got to be sight vocabulary. So we do two aspects. We're doing sight vocabulary, and we're doing phonics and blending with your children. And as I said, phonological awareness, this is a quote. Phonological awareness refers to an individual's awareness of the phonological structure or sound structure of words. Phonological awareness is an important and reliable predictor of later reading ability and has therefore been the focus of much research. And as I said, if your child has poor phonological awareness, the chances are they might struggle with literacy. So again, that's why we reinforce the phonological awareness in the school, and it has been reinforced in nursery as well. How can you do that as a parent though? You'll be asking yourself. Well, phonological awareness, the skills relate to listening, processing and manipulating speech sounds. So again, as I said in the previous presentation, it's awareness of whole words. Is your child be able to distinguish that I sat on the mat as 5 words? That's one of the skills for phonological awareness. Awareness of syllables. Are they able to then work out that if I say the word catnap, right, cat, nap, although it's one word, it has 2 sounds to it, right? That's when you start, we all start clapping, and when you're doing the nursery rhymes, children, are getting to clap at the sound of the nursery, clap along, right? So that's why nursery rhymes and singing and all the kind of bounce and rhyme activities that they do at libraries and in nurseries are very important for your child. Then again, there's the awareness of rhyme, again, which we reinforce through nursery rhymes, etc. That is an important part as well. If a child can hear that cat and mat and sat and pat all rhyme, it means that when they're coming to spell or they're coming to decode, when they're coming to read, they can see, well, there's that at sound at the end of the word. Now all I need to do is put that sound at the front, so that's and that's at, so therefore I can read that word. So it's building their skills. And then the last thing in phonological awareness is awareness of phonemes, awareness of sound. Can they break a word up? Do they know that cat has 3 sounds? Do they know that cat has k, a, t? Can they hear those 3 individual sounds? If they can't hear those 3 individual sounds, they're not going to spell the word right. So again, it's a fundamental skill that these children have got to develop. Sometimes children's initial sound is very well developed. They can identify the initial sound as k. They can also hear at the end that the last sound is t. But what sometimes gets lost is the middle sound, or the medial vowel in these kind of words. That kind of gets lost sometimes. So again, we're developing that. We're not just concentrating on the first sound, the last sound, we're also concentrating on sounds in the middle as well for your children. Now, how can I continue to develop your child's phonological awareness? The most important thing is to read with your child. You will have been doing that since they're a wee tiny baby, with the colour books. There's red, there's pink, there's blue, oh, there's a cat, there's a dog. You've been doing all those wee books with your children, and then it develops onto more sentences in a page, and they're listening to it. But it's repetitive. Sometimes the words in the book are repetitive. It's the same phrase with maybe just the last word on this page changed. But the children are then starting to develop their listening skills and starting to develop the fact that there's a kind of pattern to what they're reading and what's being read to them. Reciting nursery rhymes, again, as I said, it's great for the phonological awareness, it's great for rhythm, it's great for them to be able to hear syllables, it's great for them to be able to understand about the rhyme at the end of a word, and just the whole metre, the whole pattern of language and the whole beat of language, which is very important that they've got to pick up on as well. And then again, as I said, play I Spy. I Spy is very important. You know, I spy with my little eye something beginning with S, and then they've actually got to make sense of the shapes, the things that they're seeing round about them. What does begin with S? Right, let's find out what begins with S. There's the sun. Knowing what all these things are called round about them. Right, there's the sun, there's the door, there's the shutter, there's the chair, there's the table. Having all that knowledge is very important for them, and developing it through I Spy. I mean, you do it yourself. You know you do it with your children. What's that, Mum? That's a chair. What's that, Mum? That's a teddy. What's that? Especially at 3-year-olds, I think it is. That's when the what, why, the where always come. Where are we going? What? It's constant, but that's them just wanting to absorb everything that's going on in life. So again, that's how we can develop phonological awareness in our children. And again, phonemes. Phonemes are the smallest unit of sound, and the English language has 44 phonemes. Not 26, as we all seem to think the alphabet's 26 letters. It's 44 sounds. We have things like sh, we have th, we have ch, we have wh. We can't make them using just one letter. We've actually got to do a combination of letters to make those sounds. Sh is s now. But if we put those two together, s, we'll never get to sh. So phonemes, we have 44, and that's, I think if you've seen this slide before, Italy only has 25, and oh my goodness, I wish I was teaching in Italy and not 44 in Scotland. And as I said, phonemes are put together to form words. Now this is the bit where hopefully it goes right. This is a YouTube video which shows you how to pronounce, how to articulate the phonemes properly. Quite a lot of the time we get children coming in, and depending on maybe what influences they've had from iPads or from television or even from grannies or well-meaning big brothers or sisters, they come in and they're pronouncing the letters, the phonemes incorrectly. So they're saying things like n instead of n. They're saying s instead of s. They're saying p instead of p. And so on. And when they do that, what's actually happening is they're saying s, and they're putting an s sound at the end of letter s. So when they go to write the word sit, well they go sit, well sit is that. And what's the next sound they hear? T. So they put that. So they're completely missing out one of the vowel sounds from the word. So that's why it's very, very important that we model in school, all the teachers and all the support for learning workers who are working with your children model the correct pronunciation. And if you want to look at this video on YouTube, it will help you if you're unsure as to how to pronounce the phonemes. It will tell you how to pronounce them properly. And I'm hopefully going to show you just now. I think last time it didn't work for us, but it should work this time. I am assured it should work. Right, there we go. And I just need to play it now, and hopefully it'll go. A, E, O, A, B, D, F, G, H, J, N, Q, S, V, W, X, Y, Z, Sh, Ch, F, V, There you go, now you know. So you can actually access that on YouTube. I'm going to ask Mr McKean, who was in setting up the equipment just now, if he could maybe put it onto our website or give you a link on the website so that you can access that yourself. Right. And this is where it doesn't go. Right. Back to the beginning, by the looks of it. Right, as I said last time, the programme of study that we use in the school is called Jolly Phonics. Last time I was trying to demonstrate it to you, but I'm not going to do that this time to you, unfortunately, or fortunately should I say. Jolly Phonics is interactive. It has a sound associated with a picture, a sound, an action, a song associated with each letter that your children are learning. And the first one they'll learn, have they had them home yet? No, I think maybe that's next week. The first one they'll learn is S, which is snake. But just to let us demonstrate, what I'm going to do is actually get you to do some work just now. And what I would like you to do is forget about all the alphabet knowledge that you have and all the phoneme knowledge that you have, and I'm going to try and teach you just now some sounds, but with different symbols this time. Alright? So, if you look over here, I've got my board all prepared. I have got this shape here. Now, as a teacher, I would say to the children, what's this? Boys and girls, what's this? And you would all be shouting out, it's a snake. Right, so what this symbol here is S. Right, this symbol here is S. And this symbol here is This one here is This one here is You're doing quite well with pronunciation. This one here is see that's an ink bottle with a feather in it. It's an ink bottle, that's actually E for ink, E. And this one, for nose, for monkey, E for elephant, O for octopus, and for hat. So we've got different symbols. These are symbols that you're not used to. So I've now given the phoneme a different grapheme, a different symbol to represent what it says on the page. So, you can work in pairs if you like. You can have a look at the cards in front of you, or the sheets in front of you. They have got a wee reminder of what the sound is. Alright, the shape of the grapheme, the shape of the letter, and the sound underneath. So if you would like to maybe try and decipher what these words here say for me, please. I'll give you 2 minutes. You got a pen here? Pen and paper there if you're wanting to. You need these pens back at the end. We've got pens over here. Most people are finished. Now, you as big adults probably found that quite straightforward. Yeah? No? Some of you? But what you were having to do though, was you were having to repeat the sound, look at the picture, repeat the sound to yourself, and then look at the symbol before you could actually start decoding that. So you're using the same skills, although yours are better developed than your children's, you're using the same skills that your children have to use when they're going to be introduced to these phonemes. They're going to have to think to themselves, what's that a picture of? That's a snake. Snake starts with S. So therefore, that symbol there, that shape, means on paper, S. And that's the thought process that your children have to go through. So Children have to be exposed to this time and time and time again. They can't just be shown it once. I could show you that once and then cover it up and say, right, okay, what's, and you'd be all panicking going, oh, I can't remember. What you have to do is remember that your leavings are like this as well. They've got to be shown things time and time again. Some children will learn it very quickly. Sometimes children will only have to show it maybe once or twice and they've got that embedded in their heads. That's great. Other children have to revisit it time and time again, and that's where it's important for yourselves at night time, if you're doing homework with the leavings, that you really do make sure that you're putting time aside to go over this with them time and time again at night time. Now, as I said before, I know for some of you, I don't think you were at the presentation last time, were you? No. When we're doing blending, when we start the Jolly Phonics, we don't do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the same sequence as the alphabet. We actually start with SAT-PIN, as we call it, S-A-T, I think it's P, then I, then P, then N. But generally as teachers, as practitioners, we refer to that as SAT-PIN. And as we discussed before, the reason for that is because quite quickly children can start blending. If you introduce S-A-T, what can you make right away? Which one? You can start blending those sounds to make SAT. As soon as you introduce the I, which word can you make? Sit, and you can also make is, and you can also make it. You can also make as, if you just got this in A. And as soon as you introduce the P, then you've got pit, you've got pat, you've got sap, etc., etc. You can start making words, and that's why the Jolly Phonics was introduced in that order. Now, as I said, start to put phonemes together, put sounds together to make words. So that's one aspect of your child learning to read. And then again, as I said a wee bit earlier in my presentation, sight vocabulary is very, very important. There are some words that, boy, you can't sound out. You can't really sound out the word the, because if you sound out the word the, what sounds are you hearing? The. It's an F sound you're hearing at the end. So you can't actually start sounding out all words. Some words are just sight vocabulary, and in Jolly Phonics, when your child's being taught, they're called tricky words. So if your child comes home with tricky words, they're words that you can't actually use your blending technique to sound out. And it's just words that they've got to use. And again, these words, if we can practice them at home at night, if a child sees a word once, they've seen it once, if they've seen it twice, they're starting to remember. If they've seen it 3 times, they've been exposed to it more often, it becomes embedded. So we're doing it at school, and if you can continue to do that at night as well, practicing these words at night, then it makes them become more fluent readers. And again, we read words in context. Use games to reinforce sight vocabulary, and then we're also reading words in context so that children can get an understanding of what they're reading. We're using pictures as well to help them understand. If I had, when I had all this up here, I did actually have printed off, but I don't know if it's got lost somewhere in the photocopy. But if I'd put up the sentence, the cat sat on the mat, that would have been quite a lot of work for you to do in decoding and having to remember maybe sight vocabulary, etc. If I had a picture beside that sentence, you would have known right away that we were talking about a cat, and somewhere in amongst all that there would be a mat as well. So then it's giving meaning to the sentence that your child's reading. Now, understanding is the next aspect of your child's reading. Right? What I've just spoken about is the mechanics. These are the tools that your children can use to actually decode what's ever in front of them. But there's also got to be understanding. Your child's got to understand what they are reading and what is the purpose of the thing that they're reading. So when we are teaching your children to read, we are questioning them all the time. We are questioning them, what happened? Who was in the story? Who did that? Who was it that broke the go-kart? Where did that happen? Why did it happen? How did it happen? When did it happen? We're using these questions all the time to question your children. And we also use predicting, clarifying, as I said, questioning, summarising and retelling strategies when we're teaching your child to read as well. So when we take out a book, we've got books over there just now, before a teacher even starts to read the book, before we even open the front cover of the book, we discuss what's on the picture at the front of the book. We look at the title of the book, we look at the picture in the front cover, and from that we ask the children, what do you think is going to happen in this book? What do you think this book is going to be about? And that's a crucial skill for your child to have. They go to a library, they pick up a book, the first thing they do is look at the front cover, and they decide from that front cover whether they're going to read it or whether they're going to put it back down again. So again, we use a lot of predicting. We'll predict as well when we get to maybe a wee crux in the story, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen next? What do you think is going to happen next? Kip broke the go-kart. So what's the consequence going to be? Do you think somebody's going to get angry? Do you think this person's going to come and fix it? So, you know, we're getting them to question, we're getting them to think about what they're actually reading. And that comes into, as I said, the questioning. And then, another skill which we always try to reiterate as well is summarising and retelling a story. For the children to actually be able to sit down, listen to the story, and then retell it to you. Not word for word. You could be there, especially if it's quite a long novel, you could be there all day, but just to give you the general gist of the story, what's happened, what was the main event, and how was it resolved. And your child can actually do that just now. They'll have been doing that at nursery, they'll have been doing it with you as well at home when you're reading to them at night time. But again, it's one of the skills that we would be encouraging in your child in primary one. And these skills are not even just in primary one, they go throughout the whole school. So every time, if you're up in primary 7 and you're watching a teacher teach a primary 7 class, they're doing the predicting before they even open the book. They will do summarising, they will summarise a chapter, they will summarise the book, they will maybe summarise maybe a paragraph, just to get the general gist of what's going on in the story. So these skills are embedded. They're taught in primary 1, they're added on in primary 2, and that's just what keeps on happening. And as your child progresses into secondary schooling, they're just building on everything that's gone before, and these skills are being revisited each time and built upon each time. So the actual reading scheme that we use in the school is called Oxford Reading Tree. Now, if you've got children in the school, you know it. There's some nice characters in it. Chip, never remember them. Kipper. There's a dog called Floppy. I know that one. And the children love it. It's very engaging. The pictures are very engaging, and the stories are engaging too. It's introduced in term 1. Have you had your books home yet? Not yet. I think they're coming quite soon. I think the first books that you get are just actual picture books, and it'll have a little script. It'll have a little extended story inside it for you to read with your child. So the likes of this one, well, this one doesn't have words in it. This one says, "Oh Floppy," "No Floppy," "Oh Floppy," "No Floppy," "Floppy Floppy." So I wonder which word they're learning there. So you will get one of these little scripts home as well, and that's got the extended story on it. There's just a few words in each page. They're the words, slight vocabulary that we're wanting the children to learn. But if you look at this extended story, you can read it with your child and you can give them more of the story. And then you're discussing the pictures and you're discussing why is this character here saying, "Oh Floppy, what has he done? He's knocked over the tree, he's running," etc. So they'll be coming home to you quite soon with your little extended story as well. And then, again, as I said, we'll be developing your children's reading strategies throughout when they're reading these books as well. In Darnley Primary, we don't just stick to a resource as in Oxford Reading Tree, or when we're further up the school, it's Longman's Book Project. We use other resources as well. Sometimes they'll get a class novel, where everyone's got the same novel, and they're working together to read the book and to get understanding and comprehension from the book. Stick to just one resource. You will see your child coming home at other times of the year with non-fiction texts, where they'll be developing non-fiction reading skills as well. There might be a time just now, what they're doing is they're looking at, they've been doing Superworm and they've been doing Broom in the Broom, perhaps, by Julia Donaldson. but that they're certainly looking at other texts. They just don't stick to the one text or the one resource in the school. Now, how can I support my child's reading development? First of all, can you do the homework, please? Can you give your child the time to read the flashcards or the sight vocabulary? Can you get them to do their phonemes? Can you get them to do their phonics at night and hear their sounds? Read with your child. I think sometimes, I know I'm quite guilty of it, as soon as they get to school you think, well that's it, the reading's kind of getting taken place, you know, it's getting dealt with at school. But reading with your child, even when they're much older, is a great skill for them to have as well. You know, the paired reading, them reading a wee bit, you reading a little bit, even just at night time, you know, reading maybe a chapter of a book together is a great way to help develop your child's reading. Encourage your child to use their developing skills in their own environment. So get them to look around where they are and say, oh, Sainsbury's, oh, that begins with S, right? And then when they're further on in their phonics, they might get A and I together, and they know that that's the A sound, right? So they're Sainsbury's, and they're starting then to use their skills, their knowledge that they're being taught in their environment. So reading buses, reading bus timetables, getting a can out of the cupboard when you are making dinner, get them to help you read the letters. Are there any letters there that you know? So it's showing them that the reading is not just for school, but it can be applied throughout their whole life, which is very important. And then talk to your child, extend their vocabulary, try and use different words. When you're speaking to your child, just don't say, that's nice, say that's fabulous, that's great. I did it with primary 2 the other day, and it was for the word big. And I'm saying, come on, give me another word for big. And they're saying ginormous, enormous, gigantic, humongous, huge. They were coming away with all these words. And that is what we need in our children as well, to actually extend their vocabulary, to be giving them more words to think about and to use in their daily lives. And then a wee bit of food for thought, just 2 more slides to go and then that's us. 10 ways to become a better reader. Read, 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 read. Read, 10. A child who reads will be an adult who thinks. There's no such thing as a kid who hates reading. There are kids who love reading and kids who are reading the wrong books. So if your child isn't really quite keen on what you're trying to get them to read, it might just be that you've not quite found what they love to do or what they love to read about. And then reading, the more you read, the more things you know, the more that you learn, the more places you'll go. And that's very true. Reading is the most important skill that your child can develop. It opens up everything for them. It opens up maths, it opens up their writing skills, it opens up their science and every other thing that they want to learn about. If they don't have good reading skills, if they don't have good reading mechanics or understanding, they will struggle to access everything in life. And I think that sounds just a wee bit, you're probably thinking, aye, that's obvious. It is obvious, but I don't think people actually understand how obvious it is. Where can my bit go? I've lost my last page. But the last thing I was going to tell you about was, good readers spend more time a day on reading and improve their fluency and comprehension. And this was some statistics I found, or Mr. McKean gave me actually. Children who read for 20 minutes a day are exposed to 1.8 million words a year. So if your child just sits down for 20 minutes and reads for 20 minutes a day, 1.8 million words, I thought that was quite astonishing. A child who reads for 4.5 minutes a day is exposed to, this is when I've got to read numbers properly, 282,000 words a year. So again, you can see if you're dropping the amount of time that your child reads, you're dropping the exposure your child has to language and to reading and to comprehension and to vocabulary and to understanding right away. And then this was the most startling one. A child who reads for a minute a day is exposed to 8,000 words a year. So if your child's not a reader, if your child doesn't want to read or isn't reading, and they're only maybe reading for 1 minute a day, they're only reading 8,000 words a year. That's the same amount of words that the child who reads for 20 minutes reads in 2 days. So that's how the attainment gap can start to widen. Reading is crucial. Reading is very, very important to your child's development. Plenty of reading going on in school. You have libraries, call it library roundabout, different libraries roundabout if you're needing exposure to books. We have a fabulous school library here. We'll try to keep every library club up and running as well. Your children are actually encouraged to take books home from the school library as well, so that they're getting texts to take home and to enjoy at home with yourselves. But reading is crucial. It's the most important skill that your child is going to learn. Thank you very much for coming along, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
The induction, so we got the actual started and actually didn't get it more expensive, so we got the whole pack. It's just take the bag changes, and I thought in case it in case things had changed, it's back to the start, isn't it? I know. So no, I want the tax that. Thanks for coming along. Thanks very much. Thank you.